So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah! Throughout the NFL draft cycle, Detroit Lions fans were very infatuated with the idea of finding a starting center. Many people believe that Jackson Powers-Johnson or Zach Frazier would be on the minds of the Detroit Lions coaching staff and front office, in large part due to the uncertain future of current starting center Frank Ragnow. Now, Frank Ragnow is arguably the best center in the NFL. He is super productive. He is at worst a top 2 center at the position right now, but unfortunately, due to a long string of injuries, his future is uncertain with the Detroit Lions. There are rumors that he was going to retire as early as this offseason, but it seems as though it is likely within the next 2 to 3 years. Unfortunately, Frank Ragnow's career will be over. And as much as we can hope against that, as much as we can hope that that doesn't happen, that doesn't mean that the Lions don't have to be prepared for the future that may come. Now, like I said, that led to a lot of Lions fans being very interested in guys like Jackson Powers-Johnson, very interested in Zach Frazier, very interested in Cedric Van Pran Granger from Georgia. But as the draft went on, as the Lions drafted interior offensive linemen and defensive playmakers, center was never a position that was addressed. It was never a position that was really looked at, it seemingly. It was never a position, of course, that was called for the Detroit Lions. But in undrafted rookie free agency, it was a position that was addressed. And not only did the Lions sign one center, they actually signed 3 centers to compete for the backup center position this year, giving 2 of them signing bonuses to come in as undrafted rookie free agents. And the one that we're going to talk about today is going to be Kingsley Eguakun, I believe is how you say it. Eguakun. I don't know if I butchered the pronunciation. I do apologize. I'll pronounce him as Kingsley mostly for this video. But the 6'3", 304-pound center from the University of Florida has a ton of upside. And I do think that if he did not get hurt in this past season, he would not only be a draftable player, but he probably would have been a mid-day 3 pick as opposed to an undrafted rookie free agent. Now, Kingsley is a center that over the last 3 years for the Florida Gators has been phenomenal. With a 9.12 RAS score with elite explosiveness and agility, there is a ton of athletic upside for Kingsley in the NFL. He's not too small to play the center position, not too light to play the center position, and he's quick, agile, and explosive enough to get to the second level and make every single block that you would want out of a starting center in the NFL. Now, in 2023, Kingsley's season was cut short, playing just 4 games for the Florida Gators, but having 145 pass blocking snaps where he allowed 1 sack, 3 hits, and 2 quarterback hurries. Not the best season for Kingsley, right? Had a tough start to the season, playing both Tennessee and Georgia in the first 4 games, and then, of course, getting hurt, which, of course, is going to hurt your draft stock down the road. But as he recovered through the NCAA season, he was healthy enough to compete at the NFL Combine, where, again, he put up super impressive athletic numbers for a center. But then you go back to the other seasons that he played. You go back to 2022, you go back to 2021 for the seasons where he did play a full year, and you start to see a really impressive center prospect from that standpoint. In 2022, Kingsley Eguakun was actually one of the best centers in college football, having 430 pass blocking snaps, allowing 0 sacks and only 1 quarterback hit. Now, he did allow 15 quarterback pressures, which isn't ideal, but for a quarterback to, get pressured and escape is one thing, but for a player that only allowed 1 quarterback hit and 0 sacks as a sophomore in college is really impressive. Starting in the SEC, going against guys like Jalen Carter, going against guys like Jordan Davis, going against some of the elite defensive tackles at Georgia, at Bama, at LSU, right? every single year, he went against those guys 3 times a year. And despite going against Georgia, Bama, and LSU, he allowed 0 sacks in the 2022 season. And in 2021, it was even better. In 13 games, 454 pass blocking snaps, he allowed less pressures, 1 more quarterback hit, but still did not allow a sack. He didn't allow a sack as a starting center at the University of Florida until his final collegiate year. And in the last 3 seasons, over 1,000 pass blocking snaps, he allowed just a single sack in just 5 quarterback hits and well over 1,000 pass blocking snaps, right? Again, 2021, 13 games, 454 pass blocking snaps, 0 sacks allowed. Now, with that being said, the Detroit Lions did sign him to a $245,000 signing bonus, right? That is the biggest signing bonus I believe the Detroit Lions under the Brad Holmes regime have ever given out to an undrafted rookie free agent. And I think it's because they know that he would have been drafted had he not been hurt, because they did have draftable grades on him. And I think it's because they believe that Kingsley Eguakun can be the future replacement for Frank Ragnow. And I think that's what they're going to ask him to do in the future. Now, in year 1, obviously, he's going to be a backup center, right? I do think he's going to beat out Duke Clemens for the backup center role. Duke Clemens probably going to the practice squad, while Eguakun ends up staying on the active roster. And I think that's where he's going to stay. He's going to be the backup center. If there is an injury, I would assume that Graham Glasgow probably slides over and they slide Mahogany or Manu into the guard position. But I think that Kingsley is the long-term option. I think this is a player with a ton of athletic upside that is pretty clean as pass protection goes and pretty good as run blocking goes. And I think is a player that day 1 probably wouldn't start for many NFL teams, but you're talking year 2, year 3 down the road. This is a guy that can develop into a starting center. He has the size to be a center in the NFL. He has the athletic ability to be a really good center in the NFL. Obviously, the Detroit Lions believe in this kid enough to give him essentially $250,000, $250,000 in a signing bonus to come be the backup center for the Detroit Lions. And I think this is the long-term answer to the Frank Ragnow situation. Now, to put his numbers into perspective a little bit, Kingsley Eguakun over the last 3 years has allowed less sacks than Zach Frazier as well as Graham Barden, a player that plays every position at Duke but is projected to be a center in the NFL. So he allowed less sacks than both of those two guys drafted on days 1 and 2 of the NFL draft. And he allowed less quarterback pressures than Cedric Van Pran, an early day 3 selection in the NFL draft. So statistically, he's right up there as a late day 2, early day 3 prospect. Athletically, he's right up there with some of the best and most athletic centers to play the position in the last decade or two. So you have a great athlete with good size, with great production, and a player that, if he hadn't been injured, probably would have been a top 150 pick, a top 200 pick at the very least, which is a pretty significant grab in undrafted rookie free agency. I believe in Kingsley Eguakun a lot. I think he's going to be really, really good. I think he is going to be the starter for several years down the road, and hopefully he is the answer to the Frank Ragnow situation. I think at the very least, at the worst case scenario, this is a player that adds significant depth to the Detroit Lions on day 1, will be a quality backup center, even at the very worst in an Evan Brown-esque role for the near future. And if Frank Ragnow keeps going, if Frank Ragnow's surgery was successful and he's able to play for 5, 6, 7 more years, that's great. You keep Kingsley on the bench and you keep him as a backup center because I think he is a good backup option, but I think this is also a good security blanket. This is a good backup option, as if Frank Ragnow goes down with an injury, your long-term replacement's not going to be Graham Glasgow. Your long-term replacement wasn't on the roster before the NFL draft, but I do think it's on the roster now. I think he has every tool he needs to be successful. I think he has the best coaching staff and the best surrounding cast around him to make him a great football player and a great center for the future. And if there was going to be a team that could find their starting center in the UDFA, it would be the Detroit Lions. And I think with the cash that they gave him, with the talent that he has, I think this is a steal of undrafted free agency. And I think 2 to 3 years down the road, this could be the Detroit Lions starting center. So with all of that being said, That is my prospect breakdown on Kingsley. Eguakun, I believe, again, is how you say it, the center from Florida, a player that has a lot of upside, a ton of athletic ability, and a great backup option for the Lions. Let me know down in the comments below how you feel about the center prospect, how you feel about our center position for the future. Be very curious what you guys have to say and what you guys think. But with all of that being said, that's all I got for you guys right now. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go Lions.